All right, welcome. Today I wanted to talk about glycemic index because one of the things that we probably never even thought about unless we had a blood test done and our doctor said our A1C was on the higher end, we probably had no clue as to what that meant. But basically, as we are getting older and maybe even prior to that, our ability to respond to certain foods in a good way can be hindered and can change. So you might feel like one of these women in these pictures here. You just feel super tired, or maybe it's just a midday thing where it's maybe noon, 1 o'clock, or 3 o'clock, and you just feel totally lethargic, like you just can't get yourself moving. Your brain kind of shuts down. You need to get up, go get a snack, something, and it just doesn't feel right. So, we're going to talk a little bit about those scenarios today. And the first thing we're going to talk about is what exactly is the glycemic index. If you have ever been told you are pre diabetic or diabetic, you probably know what this means. But also, we're going to talk about why it matters more during menopause, symptoms of blood sugar swings, and tips on how to avoid the blood sugar changes, especially the drastic ones. So, basically, the glycemic index is how the I should have looked up to see who actually came up with this, but it's a ranking of carbohydrates from 0 to 100. The lower the number, the lower the glycemic index, obviously. That means your blood sugar is going to rise much slower than if you were eating a high glycemic index food, which would cause a quick spike. So basically, it's ranking carbohydrates based on how fast they're going to raise your blood glucose levels compared to just pure glucose or sugar. So here are some examples. Hopefully you can see that. And I will certainly share this with anybody that would like a copy, but they're ranked by food group, I guess you could call it. So grains and starches, vegetables, fruits, dairy, and proteins. And it starts from the lower glycemic index of each category and goes up to the highest. So anybody that's interested in getting a copy of this, I believe it is in the coaches guides for those of you that are in my app. So you can definitely check that out. It probably is called glycemic index, but basically a low GI number is going to be anything under 55. Medium is going to be 56 to 69, and a high glycemic index would be anything 70 and above. So why does it matter to us more now that we're over the age of 40 and potentially in perimenopause or menopause? Because we're having hormonal changes and we may be more sensitive to insulin. When our estrogen levels drop, it affects how our bodies can process sugar. As our insulin sensitivity decreases, it raises the risk of insulin resistance and therefore type 2 diabetes. It also does or may impact our weight management. If you are insulin resistant, you may tend to store your fat around your belly. It can affect our energy, our mood, and also induce brain fog. And if we are experiencing the insulin sensitivity, we can have worse hot flashes, mood swings, and also cravings. There's some symptoms of knowing that you've had a lot of higher glucose or high glycemic index foods. You may have sudden energy crashes, like I mentioned earlier, intense cravings. I'm going to show you a neat little graph in upcoming slides. Increased irritability, anxiety, again, mood swings, trouble concentrating, brain fog. You might be waking up in the middle of the night between 2 and 4 a.m. because your cortisol levels are spiking. Again, I mentioned belly fat increase and headaches. What are some benefits of low glycemic index foods? They will help you stabilize energy throughout the day. You will have fewer cravings, better control over your appetite. Your insulin sensitivity may improve, as may your metabolism. Your mood will be less all over the place, and you should sleep better. So, how do you eat for lower glycemic index purposes? So, what can you swap out? White rice. Try quinoa, lentils, or just cauliflower rice. Instead of sugary cereal, try Greek yogurt protein powder with berries and nuts. Instead of potato chips, you want something crunchy, try hummus and veggie sticks. Instead of soda, grab yourself flavored sparkling water or just get regular water and flavor it yourself. And instead of having a candy bar, have a protein bar. How about the plate method? Another great way to think about, okay, if I'm trying to eat more low glycemic foods, what would that look like when I'm organizing my plate? So fill your plate with half to a third to half, if you can, of vegetables. The fiber is actually going to help reduce the glycemic load. Go with one fourth to one third lean proteins, which helps slow down your digestion. And then a quarter would be the low glycemic index carbohydrates. And then you want to always think about having a healthy fat that's about the dimensions of your thumb, about that much. So we know that as far as macronutrients are concerned, the slowest digesting is protein, followed by fat, then followed by carbohydrates. And that's why when you're working out, it's a great idea to have those carbohydrates in and around your workout time, because then you're actually going to use those carbohydrates for energy. So if you're thinking about planning your day and where to place more carbohydrates in and around your workout time, and an hour before up to an hour after is a great time to put those carbohydrates in, especially the majority of them. As far as meal and snack timing is concerned, in order to help stave off those blood sugar crashes, try to establish regular eating times: breakfast, lunch, dinner. If you need to fill some of your day in with snacks, that's fine, but try to space it out. And always remember, if you're going to have carbohydrates, try to have them with protein, fiber, and fat. So, what are some menopause friendly low GI foods? Leafy greens, berries, lentils, and beans, steel cut oats, nuts, seeds, Greek yogurt, avocado, lean proteins, and cruciferous vegetables like kale, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, broccoli. And this is pretty much what the blood sugar roller coaster looks like. So you'll eat something that's highly glycemic, and then you'll have a burst of energy, and then you'll crash and you'll crave more, and then you'll have more, and the same thing will happen. So, what is actually happening when you are eating more high glycemic sugar or high glycemic index types of foods? You're going to, again, if the middle section here is normal and the bottom is low and the top is high, having low blood sugar is not good either. But here's what happens when you're high or low. So when you're normal range, you've got a stable mood, your brain power is optimal, and you've got energy, right? If your blood sugar is too high, you're putting yourself in that fight or flight. You're going to release more insulin, which is going to cause you to store more fat. Also, it's going to spike your cortisol. Weight gain happens here. Inflammation happens here. It's not great for your arteries and can lead to metabolic disease, right? If we're too low, we're going to also release cortisol, the stress hormone. We're going to have brain fog. You're going to be hangry, right? You're going to have low energy and fatigue. You're going to have cravings. And at this point, you're really going to be craving sugar, caffeine, any kind of processed foods to try to get that quick hit again. You're stressing your adrenals, and that's also going to promote binging. So, how do we avoid all of that? Don't skip meals because that will cause a blood sugar roller coaster. Try to rely on or relying on healthy, quote unquote, healthy snacks. Granola bars, you would think that they're healthy, right? Flavored yogurts, not so much. So, really take the time to read your labels and make sure that what you think is healthy truly is healthy. Granola bars tend to have a lot of carbohydrates, a lot of sugar. Same with the flavored yogurts. And then forgetting to eat protein throughout your day. Say you have a goal of 105 grams for the day. You want to try to take that 105 grams and spread it out pretty evenly, and that will help stabilize your blood sugar as well. We know that protein is definitely our menopause BFF. Actually, it's our aging BFF, and really for anybody. So, what can you do? Always have protein snacks on hand at home when you're on the go. So hard boiled eggs, nuts, just be careful with those because they tend to be very caloric. Jerky sticks, cottage cheese, plain Greek yogurt, cups, protein shakes, and bars. Always a good idea to leave the house having snacks, your go bag with you. I mentioned PFF. It's just a great thing to remember so that whenever you are having carbohydrates, you're having them with protein, fiber, and fat to help stabilize that blood sugar, to help your body process the carbohydrates easier. Keep a journal of how foods are affecting your body. What's happening with your mood? What's happening with your energy level? Are you hungry? Are you satisfied? You may also purchase a blood glucose monitor. There are several different CGM companies, but you just stick it on your arm and it continuously measures your blood sugar. So if you're pre-diabetic, if you're diabetic, or if you just want to know, it might be something that you want to test out. And it will help you monitor your blood glucose versus just journaling about it. And then making sure you're staying hydrated. Dehydration actually worsens your blood sugar fluctuations. So try to have that steady flow of fluid intake, specifically water, hopefully, throughout your day. So, how do you get started? Try not to overcomplicate it. Think about how you can change your current meals. It's always better to take a look at what you're currently doing and make little swaps versus doing a complete overhaul. That being said, if you have a high A1C and your doctor is telling you we need to do something now, then I would be more diligent about making sure I know what low glycemic index foods that you really enjoy. And then think about building that plate, making sure that you're having this much protein, this much vegetables, and this much carbohydrates or starches. Again, journal, reading your labels for sure. We are marketed to all of the time, and companies are really smart. So they'll use terms like good, healthy. It's not necessarily the case. So you want to make sure that you're looking at the labels, read the ingredients. If there are more than 5 ingredients in a label, you probably shouldn't be eating those things too often. Can you read what's on the label or is it full of chemicals? Again, another good check for yourself to know, okay, is this a food that I should have on the regular or is this going to be a once in a while food? Journal how you feel after meals. I already mentioned that. And then majority of the time, choose whole, fiber-rich foods, aiming for 25 to 30 grams of fiber a day. I was just having a conversation with a client the other day about how when you're in a caloric deficit and your protein's really high, you're probably going to need to have to supplement with some sort of fiber supplement. So it could be like a Metamucil, just plain old psyllium husk. There's plenty of supplements that you can use to increase your fiber intake. Obviously, most of our fiber from food is going to come from vegetables. And unfortunately, carbohydrates like bran cereals and things that are going to drive the number of carbohydrates up that you're having for the day. So you really have to choose wisely the things that you are eating and plan it all out. Just a matter of balance, right? But it is difficult when you are in a caloric deficit and you're eating a lot of protein and not a whole lot of carbohydrates to get a lot of fiber because a good majority of your fiber, aside from coming from vegetables, is going to come from those carbohydrates. So just make sure you're tracking. It's always the best method to know what you're doing exactly. And getting that 25 to 30 grams is also going to be good for your cholesterol too. Bottom line, managing your blood sugar is one of the most powerful things you can do to feel better in midlife. You don't need to be perfect. As always, just try to be consistent and be curious about the foods that you do or the foods that you're about to eat and how they make you feel. Not saying that you can't ever have certain foods, but just know that if that's the choice that you're making, that you are aware of the potential hazards or of the way that it might make you feel. And I'm going to open up the floor for any questions. Questions
I'll
for,
ask a question.
go ahead.
Do you have any tips on really what to look for when reading labels or things to like, as I'm learning and trying to pick better items? Is some things will have maybe it's really high in carbs, but maybe I do need that. I don't know. I guess any tips on reading labels?
As I mentioned, you want to make sure that you know what the things are that are inside whatever it is that you're buying. You're always going to be better off shopping the outsides of the store, right? So, thinking about majority of the time eating things that swim, crawl, or grow on a plant or a tree. So, majority of the time, it's the outskirts of the store. Being careful when you're in the dairy aisle because sometimes people are a little intolerant to dairy. So, I think that's where, if you're looking, I'm trying to think of an example. Okay. We were heading to San Diego last week, and my friend had these crackers, and they weren't horrible. They were made with cassava flour, cinnamon. I think there were flax seeds in them, and they actually didn't taste bad. Actually, I took a picture if I can find it. But there are other things like I've seen in the past, for example, called good thins. Good thins aren't necessarily so good, even though the name in them implies that they're good. Okay, this is, I don't know if you can see this, but maybe for a snack, and I wouldn't have this by itself, but maybe you have it with a little bit of hummus. Maybe you have it with a cheese stick so that you're not just eating this because the majority of it is going to be carbohydrates. And then just look, carbohydrates are not an evil thing. We need carbohydrates. And especially for somebody that is on the, I don't even think you're 40 yet, Reshma, or you're just 40. And your body probably isn't as, you more nuts. Your body probably isn't as quick to respond to certain foods as somebody that is a little bit older than you. But it's also a good idea, as I mentioned, to journal about that. Okay, I'm going to try this food and let me see how it makes me feel. Like you had mentioned in your check in, the one day you woke up and you were really hungry. And when I looked at your food diary, I'm like, yeah, for sure she was, because your protein intake was really low that day. And you really didn't have that many calories to begin with. So that's why you don't want to starve yourself. you want to start educating yourself on what exactly your food is made of, especially if you do have a higher A1C number, and you've got to start being really cognizant of that glycemic index, and that's really going to help you. So I did ship off to you some snack ideas,
Oh,
and
perfect.
let me just run down a few of those. I'm thinking of it. So, snack ideas, and I mentioned a couple like apple slices with almond butter, Greek yogurt topped with berries and walnuts. I think I mentioned that one already. Put a little protein powder in that. Greek yogurt is always going to be better than the sugary yogurt drinks or the flavored yogurts. Whole grain crackers with avocado turkey slices, fiber and carbs crackers, right? With a healthy fat like an avocado. And again, maybe you throw some turkey breast in there. Costco has a big hunk of turkey breast. There's probably a lot of sodium in there because I bought one 2 weeks ago and it says it's good in the refrigerator for 3 weeks. So it's going to have a lot of sodium in it, but there wasn't much other than turkey and some seasonings and sodium in there for preserving. Vegetable sticks and hummus, I mentioned that. Cottage cheese, pineapple, and chia seeds. Trail mix, again, a little bit goes a long way. Boiled eggs, whole grain toast, edamame sprinkled with sea salt, banana slices with peanut butter, and a sprinkle of flax seeds. Actually, I just had those thin rice cakes with a little bit of peanut butter and sliced banana as a snack today because I really didn't eat much for breakfast this morning. Oatmeal protein balls, you can make those. There's tons of recipes out there. And then I also sent you a list of different things that you can eat when you're on the go. A gold mine that I have found is Whole Foods. Whole Foods, you can go to their prepared sections and get a protein and two sides for $12. I actually have a friend, the one that I went to San Diego with. Every Sunday, she goes to Whole Foods and gets her lunches for the entire week. And she just uses her own salads. So, her own greens, and then throws the protein on it. So, just trying to come up with quick fixes like that, I think is really helpful.
Wow. Okay. Thank you. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Those snacks are really helpful because today's like a perfect example. Didn't have time to eat lunch, and I had to run in, get my stuff for the kids and run out. And I think in my mind, I was like, I'm hungry. But I only have to pick a protein. And I guess I think I'm so stuck on this like protein thing that I'm like, even now, like I took a cheese stick because it was quick, but it was better than taking nothing. But I think in my mind, I was just thinking like, what meat, what protein can I get? And I couldn't. But yeah, we had cottage cheese, we had yogurt. I probably could have totally done something like that. But my mind is like just telling me protein. I don't know.
Yep. And you can get protein from lots of different sources. So, the thing about protein is it's the building block for muscle, right? It's also going to help stabilize your blood sugar, and not you're not concerned about that so much, but it's really important for your metabolism and for weight loss because it does take so long to digest, and it will help you build lean muscle, which I know is one of your goals. But I
Yeah.
think for most people, and I am included in that, in this statement, when I first started tracking my food, I thought I was eating a lot of protein because I built my meals around protein, but I was not eating as much as I thought, and I was really under eating calories. If you're not eating breakfast for whatever reason, my reason was I was up at 4:15 in the morning and had to get myself out the door to get to my gym. But I forced myself to start eating breakfast because I couldn't get the calories and the protein in without eating that third meal. So for most people, especially when it comes to just really regulating your eating. The more you can pretty much evenly space your calories throughout the day, the better off you're going to feel. You're not going to have those energy dips. Your body's going to be able to process things more efficiently because you're going to have everything, right? We know the protein is the building block. We know fats help our body run better, and we have to have carbohydrates for energy. Otherwise, you're just going to be exhausted all the time, especially if you're not sleeping. And also, if you aren't sleeping, you're probably going to be having more cravings. So just be aware of that. And the protein and fat will help with the cravings. So you never want to just grab an apple and run, even though you might want to do that. Like take an apple, take a cheese stick. And by the way, a lot of our apples today are like the size of grapefruits or what
Yeah.
grapefruits used to be like. So they're a lot more higher in carbohydrates and calories than we even realize. So when you're picking out your apples, try not to get the humongous ones. Try to get a smaller to medium size and make sure you have it with something. Yes.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions with regard to glycemic index, blood sugar, etc.?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Kim.
What about like low sugar or no sugar type foods? Do they spike the glycemic index like a diet soda or like a no sugar yogurt?
That's a good question. I would, off the top of my head, say probably not, but I'm going to make sure that I look that up for you because sometimes the fake sugar can still act like sugar. So it
Yeah,
might depend on the type that it is, but that's a really
okay.
good question. And I will get back to you on the answer for that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I'm curious about that.
Well,
Not that I drink a lot of diet soda or a lot of that, but just wondering.
I don't think it will spike your blood sugar. I will look into that, but I do remember reading something about diet soda and how it can make you crave other things. So I'll get back
Yeah.
to you with a definitive answer on that.
Okay. Cool. Thanks.
Yep. Anybody else?
On that note, like if you are gonna indulge in something like a cheat, like we're human, and we want to have, I don't drink coffee, but like a bubble tea, which I'm sure I don't even want to look at the contents of the sugar, is like my once in a, I don't know, blue moon cheat. So let's say I'm having, I don't know, a piece of cake or bubble tea or something. Is the best thing to counterbalance that go for a walk after, like just do some card? I don't know. Like,
I
what
would
would you say?
I would say just don't use exercise as a form of punishment for what you've eaten. Make it a
Uh,
regular thing, right?
yeah,
Um,
yeah, I do.
but I would probably encourage you to have something along with the bubble tea or the cake that is not going to just be pure sugar. When most of the time when you're out, right, you'll have a salad first, then you'll have your main
Yeah.
dish, and then you'll have your dessert. And that's pretty much how it works, right? And there's a good reason for that. The salad's going to give you fiber and it's going to help you process the rest of your meal. So it's almost like I've given the example. I don't think you were on Kim or Reshma, but if you're going to have a slice of pizza or two, make sure you have a salad and preferably a salad with a little bit of protein on it before you
Uh-huh.
have that pizza because your body's going to better metabolize the pizza if you have the fiber, the fat, and the protein with it. And that's why I said, remember PFF. And if you can't remember what foods those are, just Google it. If I wanted to have a piece of, or a, yeah, I mean, you could just even throw it into Chat GPT. If I want to have bubble tea, what's a good fiber, fats.
Yeah, what should I eat with it? Yeah. I
Probably,
know the only time I have bubble tea is after I eat Thai or Vietnamese food.
yeah, I don't do bubble tea, but I'll go and I'll get myself, they call it, I think it's called honey boba.
Oh, yeah.
I always say they're the little honey sugar balls, and they're actually made from tapioca. But like the worst thing you could do
Yeah.
is have that and a bagel and cream cheese because
Ugh. Yeah.
carbs and more carbs. You'd even be better off having a little slice of salmon, but bagels are just so high in calorie, carbohydrates. So if you're in a deficit, it's very challenging to eat. I was just talking with somebody about protein bagels. So for those of you that are
Never.
lovers of that, we can probably dig up a recipe online for protein bagels.
That would be interesting. Never made those. That would be really interesting. I would try that. Yeah, because I love a good bagel, but it's gonna totally derail me. Yeah,
Once in a while, you're in New York City, you get a
get
bagel.
one. Yeah.
All right. Any more questions on low glycemic or blood sugar response? Otherwise, I'm going to end this recording and stop the live, and then we'll go around and do our client thing. Let me just check Facebook real quick.
No.
All right. I think we're good.